This will be the last recording for Chapter 5. We'll talk about the genital system, both the anatomy and physiology. We won't go into this hugely in depth. We will visit this again when we talk about specific disorders. But the whole point of the genital system is to control the reproductive process. So this is, again, how life is created. Your male system has the testes, the epididymis, the vas deferens, and the penis itself, which is your external organ. I think I'm not telling you anything you don't know on that one. Here's an overall view of the male reproductive system. 2 testes, then you have 2 epididymis, you have both of those, the vas deferens, coming into the glands up above the bladder. You have a prostate gland, and then you have the penis itself. Female reproductive system consists of the ovaries, fallopian tubes, the uterus, cervix, and vagina. Here's an overall view of where it sits. So the ovaries are relatively synonymous with the male's testes. They actually start out very, very similar when you were forming as a baby. And then the uterus, the whole point is to prepare for receiving a fertilized egg and growing a fetus. You have the cervix, and then the vagina, which is the sex organ itself of the female. And you can kind of see how it lays there in the body. It typically has a forward tilt to it, and it sits right on top of the bladder. The life support chain. So all cells in the body require oxygen and nutrients, and then need waste to be removed on a regular basis, or cells start to get sick and cells start to die. Your circulatory system is the carrier of all of the nutrients and oxygen that the cells need, and they also carries away the waste. If any sort of interference with the circulatory system happens, cells become damaged and then they end up dying. Your body has a very specific energy source that it uses. It's called adenosine triphosphate. It is involved in energy metabolism. It's used to actually store energy. It stores energy within bonds. Hopefully you went through that in some sort of chemistry class. Aerobic metabolism occurs within the presence of oxygen. So if you have oxygen, your body is going to use aerobic metabolism. If you don't have enough oxygen, or oxygen is just very limited, you're going to switch to anaerobic metabolism, and then you end up building up lactic acid as a waste product, and this is what makes your muscles sore after you work out. Typically, you end up running out of adequate amounts of oxygen very quickly when you exercise, and so your body tends to build up lactic acid. All movement of oxygen, waste, nutrients, etc. occurs by diffusion. So diffusion is going from that area of high concentration to the area of low concentration, trying to balance out the system. pH is absolutely critical to diffusion. pH measures the amount of acid or the amount of base in a substance. The body spends an enormous amount of energy to try and maintain a normal pH. Pathophysiology is the changes that occur within the body when it reacts to a disease process. There's so many diseases that can happen within a patient. If you have a disease of the pancreas, you get diabetes. a disease of the brain, can be a stroke. Pneumonia is a disease of the lungs. Any sort of respiratory compromise can lead to shock or alteration in cellular metabolism. That's why it's so important to make sure that we take care of the patient's breathing, their airway, so that they're getting enough oxygen in. Oxygen is needed by all the cells, so that's where it starts. If you can't get it in, then you can't circulate it, and then you can't have those cells running normally. We will go through specific diseases in another chapter. This is the end of chapter 5. We'll continue on with the next section. Remember that I want you to go on to chapter 9 next, and then proceed to chapter 6.